Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
So, good morning everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Srujan Alikanti, Director at Diagonal Matrix, with a focus on providing financial services including fraud, KYC, AML, compliance and cybercrime. He has over a decade of experience in leading companies such as UBS, Bank of England, Lloyds Bank, GE Capital and Euroclear to counter AML, KYC and financial fraud. He is an expert in AML, KYC and financial fraud and mitigating risk using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help Fortune 500 clients identify, analyze and implement solutions across Europe and North America. We seek his guidance to learn more about the subject and advise our viewers on how to make a career in this field. We welcome you, sir, to the interview series and hope we'll have a good time together.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anand, it's a pleasure meeting you. So first of all, unlike previous times, AML-KYC is, it used to be kind of a not really well-known industry. So it was just a part of the segment. But over the time, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, because of the sanctions, terrorist activities, and the money laundering activities, especially becoming the technology, became e-commerce and all this stuff, online banking. So when these options started to grow, AML-KYC became, core component in order to put the threshold for the banking industry. It's not just about the banks, investment bank, small, large companies, and even, to any industry if you talk about. So obviously, AML-KYC became a kind of a go-to, focus on the department, right? So that's fundamentally reason why the whole industry started to focusing on this space. The second thing is the types of frauds that started to grow or evolve is almost impossible to predict. That's what the situation is. So obviously is not something we can ignore it or bypass it, right? So obviously that made the entire industry focusing on the AML-KYC. So if you look into the salary statistics, or if you look into the career opportunities that you look at the market, it's exponentially almost 10x growth rate in terms of that ecosystem up. Probably that could be the one of the sought after technology, or next to the data sciences right now in the market. So I think that's something is a great opportunity for everyone to focus more on learn. At the same time, AML-KYC is and fraud, these are interconnected. So obviously someone needs to be specialist in one area. Rather you focus on everything. Either you could be on KYC or AML or fraud, how those things are tackled, or how those things happens from operational side, and how can be resolved from the technical side, is something that mixture of both the shades. It depends. There is no specific thumb rule as such that transaction is a fraud. For example, if you take an example, a rural banking transaction, normally people used to deposit the money, for example, a few hundreds or few thousand rupees or dollars. But all of a sudden, if you started, money deposits happens about, let's say, 500,000 or 1 million, and almost frequently, obviously that's suspicious. But if you take the same example to Goldman Sachs and any other investment banker, or even HSBC, 500,000 is a common thing. But again, that's not common for all the customers, right? So even when a salaried person, all of a sudden he gets about 500,000 or 1 million, obviously that's a kind of a alarm that bells, right? That bells the bank. The similar way, there are different patterns, different reasons why a transaction is considered as a fraud. So how do we do that is all about the job of the AML, KYC analyst will have to analyze it based on various rules, based on the customer profile primarily, not just rules, customer profile. I can't be the same transaction I process with you along your side, and your transaction may not be same as your colleague, right? So or employer. So depends on these factors in place. So the common problems is there are many from a technology standpoint. Like you can't be able to detect accurately about whether this is a fraudulent transaction or not. I think from a kind of ongoing challenge, what the customers have been facing right now is false positive. they believe it's a fraudulent transaction, but unfortunately, that's not a fraudulent transaction. It's an intentional, genuine transaction. So it takes some time to investigate and pull out the facts. But by then, the customer really frustrate with ongoing issues, and he might be kind of will lose some opportunities to kind of go through some pain, right? So that's one of the issue. On the other side, there are chances that the fraudulents have get away with the task. I mean, get away with the fraudulent event as well, because the banks believe that's genuine. They let them go. These kind of challenges. But again, the biggest problem is you can't really predict whether right or wrong, what is wrong, what is you can't do that. But the genuine transactions and the fraudulent transaction can only be analyzed when the analysts and technology geeks works together and build the customer profiles all the time, analyzing various shades of behaviors that happens across the customer, and then build these profiles together, and that's how we can mitigate it. And that's not something that can happen overnight or a day. It takes its own sweet time. So yeah, that's ongoing challenge in the industry. See, I think if you look into the AML and KYC, these are fraud. These are interrelated, but again, a completely different shades of department or division or a task. So basically, if you look into the AML, so there are many things that are happening right now. Transaction monitoring is something that you look at it. Sanctions, and the kind of a denomination amount that are small token amount that is being, moving from one person to another person, or cash deposits. So these are the various activities that are happening. So I think from a career progression, you need to look at where you could be specialists on, whether it is an investigation side, whether you could be transaction monitoring side, or whether you could be on the rule or profile building side. So this is something that you look at it, and I think the best approach is you need to have some sort of a brief exposure on the everywhere. For example, how to identify some fraud activity, how to identify some sort of potential money laundering stuff, or how to identify a customer can make you fool believing that he's a genuine guy, right? Know your customer part. How do you do that? How do you go a little deep side into the due diligence part? And also from the solutioning perspective, what technical options we have got as we use stop these challenges. What are the artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions we have got available, or tools available in the market? These are the things ideally the candidates are worth to focus on to get themselves comfortable with this. See, fundamentally, there are many certifications available, but personally, I don't really believe in that's something make you as an industry expert. Certifications give you some sort of overview of what it is and how it is. But as again I mentioned, there are various tools like transaction monitoring, sanctions, and the customer profile due diligence, and go to the advanced level of analysis. I think these are the areas you look into it. I think yeah, that's my take.
So there is actually no substitute for experience, right?
It's not about experience, it's about exposure. For example, if you take about the information you have got about the these areas of KYC and AML, you probably about 6 months experience. For example, you started with the financial institution for last 6 months, but you can't really gauge that you are just a newbie, right? If you spend yourself for about 3 to 4 months on a specific area, how it works, what it works, and just like an academic perspective, right? So from an academic point of view, purely look into it. Over the time, you acquire the know-hows very well, better than a person who really do the hands-on job. If an example, if a person how to do a due diligence on a step-by-step process in an organization, I think over the 6 months or 1 year, he will be comfortable of doing it and he know how this works. But he may not be strong enough to know what happens beyond that, right? That beyond their day-to-day job can only happen if you invest yourself in this knowledge, right? So my take here is whether you get a job or whether you don't get a job, what an employers or what the clients look at it is how much do you know in my industry about my industry, or in this space is all about matters here. So if a person is really knowledgeable but may not have a hands-on, I think that's not a kind of a challenge at all. I would really love to work with him, because 6 months is going to be a knowledge bank for the entire team that I'm working on. So I think that's my take on. Primarily, we are working on industry space, like knowledge-based industry. This is right. This is not a kind of, for example, a mechanical a mechanic who, if he can spend some time on 6 months or 1 year, he knows how to repair a vehicle or something. It comes by experience, right? But for us, we are working on an industry that is a pure knowledge base. Knowledge comes when you constantly feed your mind with what's happening around, what are things that are happening, right? That's what we are on. So we shouldn't forget that foundations of it. It's not about how many X number of years of experience you have got. For example, maybe in this space, if you ask me the same question about AML-KYC about maybe a couple of years or 3-4 years ago, probably I know very limited about it. But right now I know something about it, and I solve some industry challenges. What it makes a difference is feeding myself into the knowledge. It doesn't matter about 10-15 years of experience I've got, because that's not where I born, that's not where I grew, brought up, but that's where I grown in the last couple of years. I think that's the same example for everyone. Doesn't really matter how many years you have been in this space. I think my personal opinion is that people, when I look at them, they really want to go for certifications, point number one, or else they look for a kind of a career break. I don't have an experience, and how can I get that? I think these are kind of illusions they have got. But the reality is, the market is always big, and the customers or the banks always look for the knowledgeable people, and we shouldn't forget that foundation. So all you have to do is you have to invest yourself in information, that learning about the KYC. Maybe certification is a good thing, but that's not everything. So invest yourself on open resources, on the blogs, on the forums, what the people are talking about, and what are some of the latest industry findings. I mean, this information is openly available. If you commit yourself for about 3 to 6 months on this specific, I think you are exceptionally knowledgeable than most of the people do not have, includes myself or some of my colleagues, right? So I think that's where the foundation, you got to invest in yourself. And number two, let's say you're already working in that space, maybe you're looking to progression on the career, then certification is something is always best to go with it, because it takes minimum 6 months or sometimes an year, but that you probably can't invest yourself when you don't have a job, right? So when you are on the job, invest yourself in the certification, try to acquire as many as, and try to solve the real-time use cases, or write a blogs or articles or something like that. How do you solve the problem? So I think these insights or artifacts, upskill, not only upskill yourself, but also lift your career progression on a 10x fold. So I think these are the foundations we need to look into it. Yeah.
So this was it, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.